For one thing, we listened very closely to our customers, especially in the early days. Every single time they completed our program and they completed the evaluation, we took those evaluations and turned them into improvements.
Warning: Damian Andrews' growing revenue and profit, if implemented, will put more money in your pocket. Please use with caution.
Welcome to Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit with international speaker and revenue and growth specialist, Damian Andrews. This is your source for practical, usable, and simple action steps that you can do every day to put more money in your pocket. And now, the host of Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit, Damian Andrews.
And the crowd cheers widely to the trumpeting blasts of elephants sliding through eyes of needles. This is Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit, the program that deals with all things that puts more cash in your pocket. This is the show that handles your revenue riddles, profit puzzles, operational oddities, and culture conundrums. I am the one, the only Damian Andrews, and on this show today is the amazing and wonderful Dr. Nelva Lee. Now, Dr. Lee is the founder and CEO of MiTio Technologies, a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting firm. She's the author of several books, including Be the Superhero of Your Story, a personal responsibility development guide. And Dr. Lee loves to discuss her experience in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Dr. Lee, welcome to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful, and from a business perspective, I love what you've done with the organization that you've got. So you've actually made into a business diversity, equity, inclusion. Can you tell us about that story? Where did that idea come from, and what drove you to do that?
Well, thank you, Damien. It's really a natural evolution for our business. We started off as medical interpreting training providers. A little bit about my background. I have degrees in healthcare administration, and so I was the director of a large public hospital for their patient advocacy, customer service, and language interpreting services. And when I started my business, it was really as a response to a need. Because myself, as a healthcare administrator, I found that it was very difficult to really get my staff trained, my bilingual staff trained and qualified. And once we were able to do that successfully at my organization, I wanted to then bring that knowledge to the marketplace and allow other hospitals to have the same success that we did. So we started off in medical interpreting and training, and over time we started providing the services. So we provide services to over 200 languages for medical interpreting and translating. And then it just became a really natural progression for our interpreters who are already trained as cultural brokers to take that same knowledge that they use between a patient and a provider and being able to use it between an organization and their employees to really help them engage with each other and understand each other's language, if you will. So it was really just a natural evolution for our company.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the difficulty that you had was the training side of things. Was that because there wasn't training to teach people the knowledge that you needed to teach them, or there wasn't quality training to teach people the knowledge that you needed?
A little bit of both. So back when I started, there was no online training, for instance, and there were very spotty on-ground training for medical interpreters. So you would have to oftentimes drive for many hours just to get to the training. Or if you had, for us specifically, we had different staff for different languages on different shifts. So it was really difficult to get them all in a room. So if we even flew a trainer in, it was very difficult to get them all in a room for several days to do that. So the evolution of the natural evolution really was to be able to provide this training online and be able to provide quality training on a remote level. So we provided not just the lectures, videotaped lectures, but we also have live instructors that give them feedback on the spot for improvement, if you will. And so we've been able to do that successfully, and the majority of our students go on to get certified. So we know we're doing a good job. It's a very comprehensive program, and it leads to them getting certified.
So switching from that model, as you said, majority of people were attending in person, and that was the type of training that was there. And obviously, COVID has changed how. Well, it's changed people's opinions as to how we can do things. It's opened up the door that we could do things differently and certainly do them remotely. What were some of the challenges that you had in changing that model? So going from in person, where you would have a day's training, so to speak, to shorter online trainings.
So we actually switched it out. So in person, say for example, they would do maybe a weekend or a few days, whereas when we switch to online, we are able to provide it for longer periods of time. So our students are now attending a month and a half training, if not longer. So it actually allowed us to give them a lot more content than they were receiving in person. It allowed us to give them much more time to really immerse themselves into the world of medical interpreters. But one of the challenges that we had early on, Damien, was really just the mindset of many people that were in the industry didn't believe that you could teach this remotely. They thought that you had to teach them in person. And we were one of the first adopters of Skype. And then we moved over to Zoom. And now we're using Kajabi Live meetups. But we were one of the first adopters of using that remote service to really provide quality, feedback to interpreters. Which is really one of the important things that they need while they're going through their training.
That's an interesting point that you've raised there, where you said the industry didn't believe that you could train this way. And that's one of the difficulties you have with any innovation, is that people actually believing that it works. I mean, and people had trouble believing that the world was round at one point, and that we needed leeches to cure ourselves. How did you overcome that? What did you do to help influence that this was possible?
I believe it was really just attracting the top quality interpreters. So we really just went after people who were already very good interpreters already in the industry to get them trained. At the time, many people who were interpreters without having any training, and we sought to change that. Interpreters are an integral part of the medical the professionals that are in the medical system, right? And like all professionals in the healthcare, they have to get training. And so to dispel this notion that just because you're bilingual, it makes you a good interpreter or a good translator. So that was the first thing. We went after very highly qualified interpreters that were already in the industry and had them go through our training. And so that led to instant validation, if you will. So after, I would say, a few years of those top individuals going through our program, we were able to dispel this notion that that online training was not or lesser quality, if you will.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you specifically as a strategy went after people that were, say, influencers, people that were high quality, and said, okay, come and do our training. And then from there, that became a referral basis. So you had that social proof for how that worked. Am I hearing that correctly?
That's exactly what we did, yes.
Yeah. And what difficulty did you have getting those people on board? Because again, we're talking about selling here. if we're going to get down to the business nitty-gritty of it, where you've had to go to these top people who may have had their doubts. Did people have their doubts, and how did you overcome that?
We did. For one thing, we listened very closely to our customers, especially in the early days. Every single time they completed our program and they completed the evaluation, we took those evaluations and turned them into improvements for our program. So we listened very carefully to our customers and reacted very, very instantly to their comments and their feedback. So I would say the majority of our alumni realized that we were pioneers, if you will, in the industry, and that we really came at it from a position of heart and wanting to do what was best. In fact, I was the first chair of a national board certification for the medical interpreters. I believe so much in this industry and wanted it to really succeed and be elevated to the position that it needed to be elevated.
So again, from that, I love this story that you're talking about, because there seems to be this just natural flow that worked. And so on top of that, that you went to people that were influencers, recognized, highly regarded people. On top of that, it sounds like you had a system in place that you believe worked. You encouraged them to be part of that and showed them how to be part of that, but also you listened to them for feedback as to how to improve that. Am I hearing that correctly?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So what sort of processes did you put in place to take that feedback and then implement that into your program?
Just relentlessly listening to all of my customers. I personally read all of their feedback. So every single evaluation that came through, I would read them and just implement the changes that they recommended. There was a part in our evaluation that specifically asked, how was the enrollment process? How are the courses? Did they meet your standards? Was there anything that we could have done better to improve it? And thankfully, they did not shy away from providing feedback, and we were able to implement all those changes.
So it sounds like it was a commitment to going, okay, we want to provide a quality product here, but not only that, we're open to how to make this better. And then, as you said, you relentlessly had that determination to take that feedback, go through it, and then implement that as part of that training offering. Is that correct?
That is correct. And we would attend association meetings, and anytime anyone came with a concern or feedback, we would implement those as well. So that's really where the live sessions came about, and things like that.
Fantastic. And when we're talking about the training as well, because normally with trainings, you have something that's delivered in a day. And well, that used to be the case. You go to a training, you sit there in a day, and hopefully you get some sleep in the middle somewhere. You pay attention at the start, pay attention at the end, and sleep in the middle, especially after if you had a big lunch. And I know I'm being a little bit facetious there, but we've all had that experience. Then from what it sounds like, you've taken that and now you're delivering it over a longer period of time. So you've got shorter lessons over a longer period of time. How quickly did you notice the impact of people's habits? Because again, that one-day training, people get rah, 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 all excited. They go back to the office and they're there for the day. Then the next day it's kind of petered off a bit. And then a week later, everyone's gone back to the old habit. How much of a difference do you think changing to that shorter lessons over a period of time has impacted the long-term effect of that implementation within an organization?
So we noticed from the very beginning that our model was really a better model. And so I'll tell you why. So a little bit about my background as well. That I actually was a trainer. I was a trained trainer, a trained course developer. So I worked at various universities such as the Grady University, University of Phoenix, Capella University, and others as a graduate purpose. I love teaching. I love that world. And so I trained to develop courses. So when I came to my program to develop it, I developed it as if it was a university level course.
Mhm.
And again, coming from it from a desire to improve the professionalism of the profession, the quality of the teaching that we were getting.
Mhm.
I developed it just like I would have developed any other of my university level courses. And
Mhm.
so I think it was initially when students would come through, they automatically, some of them were really pleasantly surprised because
Mhm.
remember, a lot of interpreters come from other countries that
Yeah.
are doctors or dentists or high level professionals, and they come to the U.S., for instance, without the ability to transfer those skills, and so interpreting gave them that ability, and so they were pleasantly surprised to have a rigorous program given to
Mm.
them. A lot of them were very much delighted to have that challenge, right? And for those that were not, we would just very gently explain to them that this was a college level course, that the essays that they were required to do and the research that they were required to do was all to make them better professionals. And so it really and truly, we just thought became the go-to place for quality, rigorous training for medical interpreters.
Mm.
And so I hope I've answered your question, but it was really from just my relentlessness of wanting quality. If you see that.
Yeah, no, you definitely have, and I really appreciate the depth that you've gone to in that regard, because really want to understand this component from the business side of things as to how that worked and the impact that that's having. Because at the end of the day, a business, as much as you want to make money, you make money by actually adding value. And if you add a lot of really good value, that makes that whole process easier. If it's just about money, it's going to be really, really difficult. And that's what I love about this process that you're talking about, is one that you wanted to add value. You found a way of delivering an innovation and a different way of doing it. But not only that, it had a greater impact. I.e., you were talking about, going from a one-day in-person training to one that's spread over time in shorter blocks, which makes it easier for people to manage because they don't have to be there all day. So it doesn't take up their whole day. But also, too, it enables that implementation to happen, or to actually happen, but also happen quicker, because you're tapping into that power of habit and changing habits, which requires repetition.
Exactly.
So that's that component. Then you add in the relentlessness of wanting to take that in and being part of that, take all that knowledge, actually being involved in that, and then pushing that back out through your operations as well. Now, you mentioned as well that you have a number of people attending from overseas. And what I'd like to tap into now is how do you go about marketing and reaching people, and for them to find out about the programs that you offer?
Sure. So we use primarily paid ads, pay-per-click ads,
Mhm.
whether it's Google ads. We've tried Facebook and YouTube ads as well in the past,
Mhm.
even Bing ads. But we found that Google was really our best marketing strategy, and we would just do global campaigns. So we wouldn't limit it to just one area.
Yeah. So the primary lead generation is the Google ads that you put out there. And then from there, once people contact you through that lead generation, what sort of processes do you have in place to give them more information to take it to that next step? So that first step is the marketing, the Google part. What about the sales component, which is developing that trust and actually getting the sale? What systems do you have in place to do that?
Sure. So we follow a gentleman called Sam Owen. He had the whole system for having really educate and enroll uh, your prospects. And so basically, what we would do is have a pre-recorded webinar, about a 30-minute webinar that we would go through the entire process of training, of really letting them know what the tool is all about.
Mm.
Included testimonials, and everything within that training process, that webinar. And so once they finish the webinar, if they wanted more information, they would then click a schedule a call, and they would then get one of our program specialists, which is our enrollment specialist. And that enrollment specialist will again live during a Zoom call give them a good understanding of what the program was about, but also find out from them if this is something that they were interested in, and really kind of dig deep into their why for wanting to enroll into our program. And following that sales call, they would either enroll or not, or think about it for a few more days or a few more weeks. But we would definitely try to give them value between the webinar and that sales call, to answer all the questions about the enrollment process.
Fantastic. I love that you've got these systems in place, and it's really encouraging to hear people talk about that because it's so critical for the managing of the business. What about in bringing, again, adding to that marketing side of things, coming back to a repeat business and referrals? Do you have systems in place to follow up with, follow up the customers, make sure that they've got the quality? Well, I guess that's a rhetorical question now because you answered that at the start, that you get lots of feedback. But from the perspective of getting repeat business, do you have systems in place for seeking that? And also, do you have systems in place for seeking referrals as well?
We do. We have our affiliate marketing process, and our affiliates really are our biggest marketers. Our alumni are. But yes, we offer a $200 referral bonus for anyone that refers someone that enrolls into our diploma program. And then we also have our CEU, All Access subscription program. So we have a lot more courses, especially for many of the alumni have to do so many hours of CEUs in order to keep their certification active. So we offer mental health interpreting, court interpreting courses, translation courses. These are all additional things that an interpreter might want to tap into, especially if they're doing their own independent contracting interpreting. They want to be able to do many different things, not just the oral, but also the written translation, or they might want to dabble not just in medical, but in court interpreting, or they might want to dabble in mental health interpreting, which is a whole different set of skill sets that you have to learn when you're dealing with mentally ill patients and how to interpret it for them properly. So we offer all different courses, and so we have what we call our All Access CEU program. So they're able to just come in and take as many courses as they want, and they pay either a monthly or an annual membership fee for that.
And is there, with that system that you've got, is there a strategy around having a key offering or offerings that are more broader, that appeal to a wider audience to attract them in? And then we have more specialized or niche offerings for those follow-up or repeat business sales.
Perfect. Right. So the Google ad is mostly for the prospective students, whereas we do more email marketing for our alumni.
Fantastic. And if we're taking that a step further as far as building credibility, if we can step into the books that you've written, how much, because they say if you want to be an expert on a topic, write a book. How much do you think writing those books has played into building the credibility for the business that you have as well?
So we did write a book on how to become a medical interpreter, and we offered that as a bonus for signing up for the program. And I think that helps for sure. So it's definitely an additional bonus for our students, but as you mentioned, it provides me with instant credibility as an expert. But I probably didn't need that prior to writing the book because I was, as I mentioned earlier, the first chair of the National Board of Certification for medical interpreters. So that kind of gave me my stamp of approval as an expert. But one of the things that we went out of our way to do early on was seeking accreditation for our program. And a lot of medical interpreter programs are not accredited, and they don't even go through the hassle. It's quite a bit of a hassle to get accredited. You have to get bonded and secured, and you have to go through all these months of submitting documentation and providing open access to your financials and your curriculum, and it's just it's a long process, really. But we thought it was worth it, and additional to the fees that they charge you to go through all of that. So we do this annually to keep our accreditation active. But I think it gives my students peace of mind to know that we're not just a fly by night. We've been in business since 2004, so that also gives added credibility. We are AAA BBB accredited, right? So all of those things we seek out just to give our students a little extra level of comfort and security that we're doing right by them.
I love that. So that accreditation, along with, again, having the books as well, has helped build that credibility that you are a leader in that. And also, too, I love the story of the two people that are walking through the jungle and a tiger jumps out and one person starts putting their running shoes on and the other one says, "Why are you doing that? Because you can't outrun the tiger." And the first person says, "I don't need to do that. I just got to outrun you." But it sounds like from what you're talking about in your industry, the accreditation is that you putting on your running shoes because majority of people don't go to that level. Am I hearing that correctly?
Exactly. It's a bit of a hassle, to be honest with you, Damien. But I want to do this for my students. I want them to have the mind to know this is a program that 10 years from now I can call up and say, "Hey, I had my certification," which students, by the way, still do. "Oh, I lost my certification. Can you mail me another one?" Of course I can. What happens for those that got their certification from a program that started a few years ago and now is out of business? So we're not planning on going anywhere. Like I said, we've been in business for almost 20 years now. And we're very proud to be an integral part of this.
Fantastic. I love that. And just that extra value that accreditation adds as well takes that a further step. Can we go back now into the Wayback Machine? Because you mentioned that you started in 2004. Now, if we're going back to when you're starting, so let's jump in that Doc Brown DeLorean time machine, hit 88 miles an hour. And if we can travel back to when you started the business, what were some of the key struggles that you had and how did you overcome them?
Really, Damien, it was all mindset. It really was. Those are the main challenges. It was just the challenge of, well, if I build it, will they come? I know I'm passionate about it. But is anyone else passionate about it? And how do I getting my customers? It was just all a learning process for me. I left my comfortable corporate job to do this, and it was a bit scary. So it was a lot of mindset and getting out of my own way.
So when you say you left your comfortable corporate job, I get that. You've got this, well, maybe not guaranteed income, but you've certainly got that security there, especially if you're doing a good job. Job security is pretty secure. I'm struggling for words here. English is my second language and I don't have a first one. But from that, so what was it that gave you the courage to actually take that step?
Mm-hmm. I think I'm just a born entrepreneur. I think that's really at the crux of it. I love creating things and I love delivering value. So I knew that I had something that the market needed. Because I was the customer initially, and I could not find something like this, and so I knew that it was a need in the marketplace, and I wanted to provide that need.
And when you were starting, and so when you were starting, because one of the factors, I used to work in corporate recovery and dealt with a lot of companies that were in financial distress and some of them failed. But one of the key factors as to why businesses fail is undercapitalization. They don't anticipate how long it's going to take to actually get the thing up and running, how much capital is going to be needed to
Yes.
actually, before they become sustainable with that new business. From your perspective, is that something that you analyzed, and did you take precautions? I mean, because I remember reading, I think it was Bill Gates, when he started Microsoft, he wasn't sure that it was going to succeed. So he made it a requirement that they would always have enough cash to pay employees for 12 months, which as the company grew, that was a lot of money in the bank account. Was there things like that that you put in place to give yourself that security to work through, or was it just, shoot from the hip? How did you go about it?
Well, I was very fortunate that I was also working. Like, I left a corporate job, but I still kept my professor jobs. So I didn't take out a salary from my company for many years. So I think that really helped. And then most of my employees are 1099s, what we call independent contractors. So I think keeping the expenses down really is really the important thing. For many companies, as you mentioned, they think that they're going to make XYZ amount of money initially, and they don't, and so they overpromise or overextend themselves when it comes to expenses, especially when it comes to the employees that they hire and how they're getting paid. So you'll find a lot of tech companies who are very creative in this, that they'll instead of in lieu of salaries, they'll give stock options and things like that. Because you really have to think very budget conscious. You have to be very budget conscious when you're starting out. Even though you think you might be getting some contracts in or some success, you have to think long term. And so for me, remember, I came from a managerial background, so I was already managing budgets of large, very large budgets, $1 million plus. So I had that expertise, if you will, from the financial literacy. So I wanted to be very conscious to not overextend ourselves and to keep expenses down as much as possible. It's a remote program for heaven's sake. So you have, the overhead really was mostly it was marketing. So marketing was my largest expense. And so right after that was our employees. Now that's flipped obviously, but in the early days, that's what we spent the most of our income on. And so it's just really important to be very, very cautious as to your expenses and to keeping them really at a minimum. Shoestring really as much as possible.
And how do you do that? I mean, because there's a number of things that you can. There's like there's need to have, and this is going to generate extra income, and there's nice to have, like maybe a newer laptop or something like that. And I'm giving very obvious
Right.
examples here. But how did you make those decisions as to, obviously marketing, as you said, was a big expense because you wanted to help generate that income. How did you make those decisions as to these are need to have, and more so, how did you identify that those actions or those expenditures were likely to, or more, had a higher probability of leading to increased income?
I forget what book I read this from, but really and truly, it comes down to what is bringing you income. So the only things that you really have to spend money on, or you need to prioritize, is what is bringing you income, what is generating income, revenue. Right?
Yeah.
If it's not generating revenue, it's definitely a nice to have. You might think it's a need to have, but it's not. I'll give you an example. For a online program, you need a good CRM and you need a good learning management system, right, to do a good job. But there's the Cadillacs of learning management systems, and there's the Toyotas, right? So you have to decide. You have to make a decision. Am I going to go with the Cadillacs, or am I going to go with the Toyota initially? And so those are the choices that as a CEO, COO, you have to make early on, because you might want to go with the caveat because it has all the bells and whistles, but is that what you really need to just to
Mm.
function and bring in the revenue initially? So I would say just making those wise decisions early on and keeping things to, I'm just going to keep it bare minimum. I'm just going to prioritize what's revenue generating. If it's a bells and whistles, I can put it on my vision board. you know, I can aspire to get that eventually, but is it needed? No. So
It's one
we'll
of
keep.
those. I was going to say it's one of those things where you aspire to get that and you never get there. Because I've seen in so many companies where they'll have a software system and they'll probably use about 5 to 10% of what it's capable of, but they're paying for the whole system.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So with that as well, when you've got people coming on board, how do you get them all singing to the same tune? So, because everyone comes in with different ideas, and that's lovely. But as a manager, you've got to deal with that. You've got people going, "Oh, we could do this, we could do that." And how did you corral them into going, "Okay, this is the direction we're going"?
So I guess that's really my superpower. I didn't realize that I was that good at it until I saw other people, struggling so much. Again, I come from the world of management, right?
Yeah.
So that is definitely something that I put a lot of time and effort into. And I would say that I overly obsessed about morale of my
Mm-hmm.
staff. So I'm really always incredibly, just like I was very conscientious about my customers' quality and making sure that I listen to them, I'm overly obsessed with my staff's morale. It keeps me up at night if I have a staff member that's not happy for some reason. So I want my staff to have really good positive morale. I want them to find purpose in the work
Mm-hmm.
that they do for my company because I like to find purpose in what I do. They
Yeah.
always say that employees leave not because of pay, not because of working conditions, but because of managers. And they leave
Mm.
when they don't feel like they're doing something for a higher purpose. And so
Yeah.
I've always wanted to make all my staff feel like they're a family. I know that sounds cliche, but I want them to feel like, hey, if I need to take a day off or I need a week vacation or whatever is the need, if they wanted to prioritize their family. And
Mm.
so my employees know that their quality of life really means a lot to me and and that they find purpose in the work that they do for MiTio. Now, I'm not saying that everyone found purpose and they found that that they were able to feel heard. I can't
Yeah.
say that I'm perfect by any
Mm.
means, but I would say that the majority of our employees who really they're so loyal, and I'm so blessed to have them. It's amazing.
You mentioned family there and cliche, and I think cliches are cliches for a reason, and the reason is that it works. And also to delving into that. Well, I want to before we go to that. You mentioned about your superpower. Do you have an alter ego? Is Dr. Lee your alter ego? Do you have glasses that you put on and that you're someone else? Or
No, I don't have an alter ego, but I do believe that um, building morale is definitely one of my gifts for sure.
yeah.
I'll give you an example. I was a nursing home administrator, and
Mm-hmm.
I would go to at one point I would go to different nursing homes that when I arrived, their previous surveys, what you call it, when they have nursing homes in the United States are incredibly regulated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so every year they have to be tested and inspected, and
Mm-hmm.
you have a sliding scale of the merits that you can get anywhere from like 20 down to 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a nursing home with the higher demerits just gets a bad star rating, if you will. So
Mm-hmm.
you can be 1 star all the way to a 5 star. So I always aspired for my nursing homes to have the highest stars. But you can't get that if you're not able to get your staff to get behind your vision. You can't get that if you can't corral everybody. Everything from the kitchen staff to the nursing, the nurses to your maintenance staff. Everybody has to get behind the vision. And to do that, you have to care about people. Because people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And so it's really just a mindset, really, of the leader that I have to care for each and every one of my employees in order for them to care about my vision and what I want to accomplish. And I can tell you every single one of the nursing homes that I went to that had 15 demerits when I got there the year before, we got them down to either 3 or 0.
Wow.
Right? Yes. To get the star rating improved, one or 2 stars, because I was able to get morale that high in my building. And so it really just comes down to caring about people. If you care for them, they will work really, really hard for you.
And in that caring, is it a case of having that regular contact rather than being the technician in the business where you're doing everything? And I'm relaying this too because this morning, where I have coffee from time to time, regularly there's the same gentleman who, I'm not sure, I think he's running a real estate business, but I'm not sure. But I overhear the conversation. I see the same people come in, and I heard him talk specifically, which what I think was a new employee, and he was talking about the purpose of this conversation is for me to understand what you need. And he seems to have this on a regular basis, meeting with them, just having a conversation about what's going on. Is it that simple, just touching base with people regularly, asking them the questions and listening, or is there something else to that?
Well, that's definitely a part of it. I did that very regularly with my staff. Took them out for breakfast or lunch. I would bring them breakfast. Whatever I could do to celebrate them and let them know that I cared. But also, it's about a little bit more than that as well. There's a school of thought about leadership by walking around, and so you can't be a leader that's just stuck in your office. You have to know what each of your employees' job looks like, and actually get in there, and get your hands dirty, if you will. I used to love that show, Undercover Boss. Did you remember watching that?
I know of the show. I didn't watch it much, but I do know of it, yes.
Yeah, and I would love that because I'm like, that's exactly what leaders need to do. You have to know what your employees' jobs looks like. Everything from the garbage, the person that throws out the garbage to the receptionist. You have to know what your employees' lives really looks like. So when you're making decisions about their lives, you can make it with a level of consciousness and knowledge. And so I would do that. I would do that on a regular basis. And it's very time consuming because it's not what I'm getting paid to do, right? As a manager, you get paid to make sure that your books are on point, and you get paid for making sure that your marketing is on point and all of those things. But you can't get your job done if the people that you're managing aren't getting their job done and they're not doing it in an efficient, effective manner. So you have to know what their job entails.
I love that information you're sharing on how to manage employees. And it's all, to me, sounds very simple. And it's just that, again, that commitment that you said, that determination to stick to that and do that. If we look at your business and the journey that you've gone through with that, what are some of the setbacks that came out of the blue that surprised you, that were really hard, and then you had to work through them? And how did you do that?
So I'm going to tell you that COVID was a really good time for us in terms of the eyeballs that we got, right? Because everybody was sitting at home, not doing anything, and a lot of people wanted to make their lives better. So we got a lot of those students. But then the aftermath, just like Netflix and all of those other tech companies that saw a backlash, right? They saw the spike during the COVID years, and then it was just like downwards, right?
Yeah.
We've got this, we receive the same type of backlash, especially with the inflation and all of that for the past year. So we have definitely have seen some headwinds in the last 2 years. And I would say the challenge has been, you know, because you get so comfortable and so used to different types of systems, right? During the good years, the challenge has been, okay, again, what do we need to keep and what do we need to shed? And that's been definitely a challenge for us, Damien, for sure.
So with that, taking it a step further, and I know we've focused a lot on the financial side of things because that's in the show title, growing revenue and profit. However, I don't believe that the revenue and profit is the key drivers to all that success. So beyond the financial success, what other measures do you use to determine the impact of the success of your business?
Right. So we carry this whole idea of family over to our customers as well. So if you look on our social media, it's always MiTio family, MiTio family. So our Facebook page, our Instagram, all of our Twitter. And the reason for that is we want our alumni to reach out to us when good things happen to them. So whether they got a job, whether they got certified, whether they have a child, I'll get pictures of babies that are born from my alumni. So I want that. I want to encourage that. And as I mentioned, the referrals we have a very robust referral program with our alumni, and that's because they feel cared for. I believe that. So that in addition to the CEU subscription program that we have, so we do a lot of reaching out to our alumni. We have amazing graduation that we do at the end of the year. It's virtual, and our students are from all over the world, really international as well as national. But we just believe in celebrating them, right? And I'll tell you, one of our North Stars is to be able to provide employment to all of our alumni that want to work with us. So not only do they get to work with us as interpreters and translators, because we have a platform that can service, like, as I mentioned, over 200 languages, including ASL, and it's 24/7 from anywhere in the world that they can access and be interpreters. But because we also expanded into diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting, we only hire our alumni to do that. So we only hire alumni to work as our interpreters and translators. We only hire our alumni to work as our consultants. And so it's a full circle. If they know that they're going to be cared for during the program, after the program with CEUs, and then for employment as well.
Wow, that's amazing. And when in that process as well, as you're moving forward, what are some of the things that you've done? So as you've moved forward, past tense, what are some of the things that you've done that were unconventional or out of the box? You've mentioned some, but some additional ones that you implemented that had really, really remarkable results.
So I love to tinker. It's one of the things that I love to do. I'm always coming up with what others might consider hair great ideas. I don't know.
Shiny thing.
I love to come up with different things, whether it's something that others have tried or not. I'm always thinking about what I can do, right? To be honest with you, I do with everything. I just happen to have a vehicle through my company that I can implement a lot of that with. But I'm always thinking about other businesses, how they can do things better. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not the CEO of that business. I need to focus on mine. That's just kind of how I'm wired. I'm just constantly thinking about different ways and different innovative ways to do things, to make things better. But I'll give you an example of one. We launched our medical assistant program recently. And the main reason wasn't so much for me to go into the medical assisting field, but it was really to give my interpreters a dual degree. I wanted them to be so competitive when they went out into the workforce that they can be like, I'm a medical interpreter and a medical assistant, and I can, I can do it all. I can be a bilingual staff member, basically, of doing multiple jobs for you. And I wanted them to have that level of competency and competitiveness. And so that's why we developed this whole program around that, because I just want the best, right, for my alumni.
You sound very competitive. I love that.
I love that, for sure.
And with that innovation, do you have a way of balancing that? From my perspective, or from me, I'm same thing. I put it down to that I'm a Leo rat, and I see shiny things all over the place, and I'm always going, "Oh, let's do that." But I have a close friend who's actually not a business partner. We have been in business together before, but he's my best friend, and I regularly go to him with some ideas, and I know he's my manager. He'll go, "Okay, Damien, this just," and he has a way of saying things where I go, "Okay, maybe I need to think about this a little bit more before jumping over," because in my past, it's like shiny thing, jump over there. Oh no, that's fire! Get out! Get out! Get out! Do you have a way of managing that innovation with some practicalities of management?
Yes, yes. So my son, actually, he is definitely that person for me. He is my business partner. He's a brilliant young man. He's in his early 20s. But one of the things I love about him is that he won't necessarily say no, but he will always give me like the whys as to why I should wait, right? I love that about him. So he'll, that's a bad idea, but he'll like, that could work, but I don't think you may want to try that. You might want to postpone that maybe for a year or 6 months or something like that. So I love that about him. But he if he thinks it's a great idea, he actually helps me implement it. He's actually much better at execution, really, than I am. So he'll think about all the different ways that we can execute it, and he'll come up with these brilliant plans. And a lot of those plans we've implemented into our program.
Fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, we've got to the product placement part of the podcast. Is there anything that you'd like to share? I know you've got the book and we've got the courses, but do you want to expand on those for the people that are actually listening that are outside of just the business listeners, but actually there might be customers for you as well? Is there anything you'd like to share in that regard?
For sure. So as I mentioned, we provide diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting. And we also provide interpreting and translating services. So interpreting oral, translating written for businesses, court lawyers, anyone that's in need of those services. So I would love for your audience to go to MiTio.org. That's MiTio.org. And you can find us there. So you can either click on the tab that says interpreting services, or click on the tab that says diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting services.
Fantastic. And thank you for preempting my next question was how to reach out to you. So I love that. But we'll put all that detail in the show. You're very talented. I love it. Your superpower is mind reading as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
But before we go, can you leave the audience with what you'd like them to take away? So your wisdoms, your keynote, your nutshell. What is it that you would love them to take away from this interview?
So I didn't believe this for many years, but really and truly mindset is everything. When we have the proper mindset, we are better CEOs, just period. And by mindset, I mean, all the self-doubt as leaders that we hear, that we basically, subject ourselves to. They say that we have 30,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of them are negative, right? So it's just universal. We're all very, we have very high standards for ourselves. We really can be very hard on ourselves oftentimes. So really and truly take the time this is my nugget for all leaders. Take the time to really invest in getting your mindset as positive as possible, because you can accomplish so many things, right? If you think you can, if you think you can, right? Just like Henry Ford said, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. And if you just think that you can, then you can accomplish so much. So really take care of that, and you'll be able to succeed, and be able to do so much and accomplish all of your dreams, really. But we get it our own way. I would encourage your listeners to do that. And how do you do that? I'll give you a few seconds of how I do that. I practice gratitude, and you have to be very intentional about it. So it's not just thinking every now and then that I'm grateful for something. It's really making an appointment for that. Whether it's at the end of each day, or at the beginning of the morning, or throughout your day, you have to be very intentional about thinking about things that you're truly grateful for. And then meditation really has helped. Meditation and prayer it's so powerful. It sounds cliche. It's been around forever, but it works. So I would definitely encourage everyone to be very disciplined about those things. And if you are, you will realize how much of a gift really that you're giving to yourself.
It's sage advice, Dr. Lee. I really, really appreciate you sharing that for the audience to take away. Thank you very much for taking the time to be on the show. We'll put all your details in the show notes so the audience can reach out to you. And yeah, just it's been an honor to chat with you in the depth of and the detail that you've gone to explaining how to manage the business and how to get things up and how to overcome struggles, but also to the personal journey to go through as well and how to overcome those struggles. But Dr. Lee, thank you very much for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.